Hi students, how are you all? I hope you're all doing fine. Students, in this class we shall start with the new prose. Students, you all have heard about the birds. Which are the birds that you all have heard about? You have heard about crows, you have heard about pigeon, you have heard about peacock, you have heard about hen. Isn't it? You all have heard about these beautiful birds. Students, you also have heard about a beautiful bird which sings very, very melodiously. What's that bird name is? Very good. The bird name is Nightingale. And in India, some poet is known as the Nightingale of India. Who is known as the Nightingale of India? Very good. Who is known as the Nightingale of India? It's Sarojini Naidu. Sarojini Naidu is known as the Nightingale of India. In this class, we shall be reading about the Nightingale. It is a prose given in page number 52. So here it's a story. Let me give you firstly you have to understand the words porcelain, emperor. See, these are the words that appears very oftenly in the prose. Porcelain is the type of a material. Example like white marble, which is very, very famous in China. And emperor is nothing but the king. It's a story about a small bird, that is nightingale, who sings very, very beautifully and melodiously. Here, long ago in China, the emperor lived in a palace that people said was the most beautiful palace in the world. Here we are speaking about a palace that is in China. Where it is? It is in China. And it is believed that the palace in China is the most beautiful palace in the world. जो palace China में था वो दुनिया का सबसे बेहतरीन palace था. The whole building was made of the most expensive. Expensive is very, very costly. Like example, if you get a dress, oh God, it's such an expensive dress we call it, because it is so costly. The whole building was made of the most expensive porcelain. Now porcelain, as you know, is the thin, delicate glass that can break very easily. Delicate is very, very soft. उसे छूते के साथ आप वो टूट जाएगा. So the entire palace in that China was made of porcelain, and porcelain is very, very thin and delicate. What was made of porcelain? The palace. The palace was in China. All the people who lived and worked there had to be careful while walking, cleaning and cooking. Even the visitors were warned about the delicate nature of the palace and were told to be cautious not to damage the palace in any way, as even a little bit of damage could make the emperor extremely angry. Here, whoever worked in that palace, let me draw a small palace here. It's a small rough diagram of palace. Whoever who worked in this palace were warned, like, you will not walk very hastily. You will be very much careful while cooking, while walking, even while cleaning also, because whenever you walk, whenever you cook, there are things that we walk suddenly or we run very, very fastly. But here, everybody, even when the visitors, when the relatives come to the emperor, they were warned that this palace is made of porcelain, and porcelain is very, very delicate in nature, and you have to be more careful while walking. Please don't try to harm or destroy the palace, or don't create any nuances or damage to the palace. Even a small bit of damage to the palace could make the emperor very angry. अगर पैलेस में थोड़ी सी भी खराश है तो फिर थोड़ा सा भी डैमेज हो गया तो किंग को बहुत ज्यादा गुस्सा आ जाता था। एंड जो भी वहां पर आते काम करने के लिए या तो फिर पैलेस को विजिट करने के लिए आते, उन तमाम को ये वार्निंग दी जाती थी कि आप लोग जो है बहुत केयरफुल से वॉक करेंगे, आप ज्यादातर भागेंगे नहीं, आप बहुत केयरफुल रहेंगे, बिकॉज अगर थोड़ी सी भी खराशी आ गई तो क्या हो जाएगा, किंग को बहुत ज्यादा गुस्सा आ जाएगा। The garden surrounding the palace was not only the loveliest of the gardens, it was also so large that even the gardeners didn't know where it ended. And you know, every palace had, if you have seen in the movies, अगर आपने movies में देखा होगा कि it will have a garden, a very, very rich gardens. If you see the Buckingham Palace, just watch it in YouTube itself. It will have a large, like a very, very big garden, isn't it? So even this palace had a very big garden, but nobody knew it where the garden would end it. मतलब जो भी वहां पर काम कर रहे थे उन तमाम को किसी को नहीं पता था कि कहां पर वो जो फॉरेस्ट है, वो जो गार्डन है, खत्म होगा। इतना बड़ा था, it was so big that nobody in the palace would know where it ended. However, some travelers who had gone beyond the garden came back and reported that the garden eventually became a huge forest that extended down the seashore. They also spoke of the nightingale that sat in the branches of a tree and sang beautifully. So the visitors मतलब जो भी अगर कोई palace को आता है तो when they would come, when they visited the garden, they said that if it had a garden here, if it was like its garden here, it had extended to that an extent that कि वो जो है एक बहुत बड़ा forest बन गया था. See, there is a difference between a garden and a forest. Forest is very deep where the animals would live, but not in the garden. Garden is made and it is tended, it is taken care by the people so that it would look beautiful. But as you see in the forest is not like that. It would have very, very big trees, variety of trees, variety of animals, different species would live in the forest, but not in the garden. So this garden had eventually became a forest where the big number of trees would started growing in the forest. And the travelers means imagine that you've gone to London there to stay for a couple of days just to roam the city, and then you will come back. Then you will be considered as a traveler. You will be considered as a traveler. And you report like, there is so beautiful things in London, this is the thing that is located, and the most beautiful thing about London is so and so, you will mention it, isn't it? So here also the travelers who had come to visit this palace, they had seen the garden and they have gone to find where the garden would end it, and later on they told that it is turned into a forest, and in the forest there sits a beautiful nightingale and sings very beautifully. The poor and tired fishermen would stop their work to listen to the enchanting notes that came out of the throat of the nightingale. You know, the fishermen. You know the fishermen like मछुआरे जो भी अपने काम से बहुत, because they work hard, they work very, very hard, and the fishermen would, whenever they are tired, they would sit near to the seashore. Seashore is nothing but, imagine दिस इज द सी, एंड जो उसका किनारा होता है, this is considered as a seashore, and the fishermen would sit next to the seashore and they would sing the beautiful and melodious song of Nightingale singing in the forest. जब भी मछुआरे बहुत ज्यादा अपने काम की वजह से थक जाते थे तो वो लोग क्या करते, सीशोर के पास बैठते और नाइटिंगेल की ब्यूटीफुल सॉन्ग सुनते थे. Many travelers from around the globe came to see the grand porcelain palace and the wonderful gardens, but when they heard the song of Nightingale, they all agreed that the best thing about the palace and its vast ground was the melodious song of the Nightingale. Many people from the world, across the world, they would come to see the porcelain palace. And they would appreciate that, oh really, this palace is so beautiful that we cannot there is a word like only two eyes are not enough to see the porcelain palace. It's such beautiful. But all the travelers, all the visitors, when they heard about the Nightingale, they would all agree that the best part about the palace is the Nightingale. Oh, what a beautiful voice! They cried out in amazement. Amazement is very surprising. Very surprising. When they got back home, they could not forget the song of the Nightingale that lived in the forest, that sloped down to the sea. Poems and books were written in praise of its magical voice. Here, when they give an example, like if I visit somewhere, if I had a very beautiful chat or a samosa, the most tastiest, if I have it, then I would say I cannot forget the taste about it. Even though after so many years also I remember, oh, that where I had it, the tea, it was so delicious, it was so tasty. In the same way, when the visitors, they would come to the palace, and when they hear the song of the Nightingale, then even though after they returned the home also, they would tell, we cannot forget the voice of the Nightingale. It's so beautiful. It is very calming and gives a soothing experience, they would say it. And in this regard, many books were written and many poems were written in praise of palace as well as the Nightingale. As it so happened that one of these books reached the hands of the emperor. He was pleased to read all about the great things written about his palace and gardens. So what happened? So many books were written that one of the books reached the hands of the emperor, and he was so pleased. He was so happy to read that everything was written about his palace and his gardens. He read some more, and then suddenly he read about the Nightingale and was astonished. As he was reading the book, he was so surprised to read about the Nightingale. He was really very much surprised to read about the Nightingale. The Nightingale? What? He said. See, this is exclamation mark. What? He said. The Nightingale is the most beautiful of all the things in my empire. And what is this Nightingale? I don't know anything about it. Here, the emperor is very surprised because he did not hear about the Nightingale at all. He doesn't know what Nightingale is. So he is so surprised that what is the Nightingale which stays in my palace and I myself don't know. He called one of his courtiers and said, courtiers is जो वो palace में काम करती हैं, उनको क्या बोलती हैं? Courtier बोलती हैं. So उन लोगों को बुलाती एंड बोलती कि कोई पोएम, कोई बर्ड के बारे में इस किताब में मेंशन है, सो प्लीज मुझे वो मेरे गार्डन में रहती है, आप उसको मुझे लाके दो. मैंने कभी भी ऐसे बर्ड के बारे में नहीं सुना, ना ही मैंने इस पक्षी के बारे में मैंने सुना है. आई हैव नेवर हर्ड of the name of a such bird, such the courtier. She has not ever been presented in the palace. So वो courtier बोलते, even I have not heard about what this Nightingale at all. I think it's a lie, he would say. And मैंने कभी नहीं देखा कि वो हमारी पैलेस में प्रेजेंट है. the whole world know that this bird is mine and I don't know about it, said the emperor. I want her to be presented in my court this evening. He says, सारी दुनिया को पता है कि that bird lives in my court and I myself doesn't know that that bird lives in my court, and I want you to go search and present that bird in front of me by this evening. He says, and he takes a bed. So here till this one we have finished it. That we read about the palace. It's made of porcelain. We also heard about the nightingale and how it calms and soothes the tired and the tired fisherman. And also there is a garden that has extended into a forest. And also this whole thing that is of very, very long ago that happened in China. So if you have any doubt till here, you can just feel free to contact me through WhatsApp. Till that one, stay home, stay blessed. Bye-bye.